Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Hebrews
with Kurt Bjorklund.
After the statement about being foreigners, strangers in the land, being people who, again, are strangers, the same word translated in the NIV. Verse 17, by faith Abraham. Verse 20, by faith Isaac. 21, by faith Jacob. 22, by faith Joseph. 23, by faith Moses. Parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw that he was no ordinary child. They were not afraid of the king's edict. So several statements again about people. We're not going to look at all of those. And then verse 24 comes to Moses. By faith Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who was invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the application of the blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. So Moses here as an example, and again, just now we're kind of picking and choosing the examples here because there's so many. We are told that he chose not to take on the identity of being a prince in Egypt, that he chose instead to be mistreated with God's people rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Now, this is hard to even put into context. If you've ever seen one of the old movies or treatments of Moses and life in the palace versus the slavery of the people, it gives us a little taste of that contrast, but it would be really an amazing choice to walk away from living in a palace as a prince in a land that had such disparity between classes and to identify with the lower class. And it says here that Moses was willing to do that rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Now, what exactly were the fleeting pleasures of sin? It's hard to know exactly what that means. This is just the most common word for sin. And the only reason I say that's hard to know is because it doesn't identify what his sin was as much as just saying that there's a temporariness to that. And so he regarded disgrace for Christ's sake as of being greater value than all the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. And he preserved because he saw him who was invisible. So here's what I want us to see about faith, and that is, and we said this kind of in our definition, that faith requires understanding that the most important things are often not seen, and that the most important things are often future, and therefore we must by faith say that is where I am putting my hope and my trust rather than in what I can see and what is immediate. That is a hard balance of faith. And although you may never be in a place of abandoning a palace to live with an oppressed people, there will be many choices where you say, do I take the immediate win versus the path of faith? Every time that you make a financial contribution out of your resources, what you're in part doing is you are saying, I am taking something that I could use now that's tangible, that I can see, and I'm investing it in something I can barely see, barely understand, but I believe that there is one who's invisible and that there is a future. Every time you choose obedience to something that seems unknown or unenforceable. So, in your thought life, in your just kind of looking down on other people or your bitterness, and you say, I'm going to choose to walk away from those things, you are choosing to say, I believe in the future and what's invisible rather than what is visible and present. And that is the journey of faith for every person. And it's one that requires us to have a clear idea of who Jesus is and what is not ultimately of the most significance in our current life. It's having eyes to see beyond what is immediately evident. That is faith. Where are you living by faith today in your life?
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.